Hey everybody, happy Thursday. Welcome to Weather Weenies. Breton and Alan Holt here. You didn't get a Wednesday episode.
Well, we tried.
We were in the middle of chatting and we were maybe 2.5 minutes in, and all of a sudden we noticed on the screen there was a tornado warning. So I jumped up. You were a little bit more composed. I was like, "We gotta get out there."
It was
funny.
It was something we were not expecting.
In hindsight, it was just funny because we were, in here. I turned my phone on to do not disturb, usually just so I don't get a call or something in the middle of the show. But it was just that we had been talking, and I had just clicked onto the satellite.
This is the first thing we pulled up.
And it's blinking.
Yeah, it was like Monsters Inc. Red Alert, the sirens go off, we start running, we go over there. But I'm sure we're going to talk about what unfolded. In this episode.
Let's first start with this picture. Which is was it from Norwich Walk?
Susanna Warner. It was from a town called Anson.
Oh, okay.
So it was like northwest of Norwich Walk in the Skowhegan area, so that's where the vantage point is. And I'm assuming that this was taken sometime around 3:30, 3:45. That's the storm, though, that has gotten all the attention, had our attention yesterday. And you're kind of keying in on the feature that looks like...
suspicious.
Yes, it looks like it could be perceived as a funnel cloud, perceived as a tornado, perceived as something really dangerous. But it's something called a beaver tail. And all we're seeing is air rapidly rising into the storm and condensing in the process.
Yeah, so it's sucking in more moist air.
Yeah.
It's cooling, condensing in that area, making the clouds.
And there may even be, like you see on the left side of the image, how that there's a lot of rain there. There could be some rain-cooled air getting pulled in. And from what I was reading about a beaver tail, I was just making sure everything was correct and sound, is that when the air's getting pulled in and it's already cooled by the rain, the condensation is really fast. So you get that extremely low dip to the tail.
But this isn't really rotating, right? It's just kind of hanging
that's
back.
the inflow.
Yeah.
It's going up into the storm.
Yep.
And that is different than the photo that we saw yesterday too, of the what looked like more of a wall cloud look.
Yeah, we have that in here. Let me pull it up. This is the video. Oh, this is the video. And
this was from a different perspective. This would have been south of the storm.
And this would have been where this is from the Skowhegan Fire Department. So a funnel cloud was spotted apparently over Norwich Walk at about 3:30 or just before 3:30. This is probably from about 3:40 or 3:45. And this isn't rotating, but you can see the lowering. It isn't rotating to the point where you'd get tight rotation. There may have been some broad rotation, but this isn't really a funnel. It's just a lowering of the wall.
Just a general lowering, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So like a funnel, if there were one, would stem off of that.
Right.
Yes. So it's not to downplay the storm. It was definitely a strong one. To have all of these severe features, a beaver tail, a wall cloud, it was booming.
Well, and I think that the coincidental thing that triggered the warning was they got the report of the funnel cloud. It matched up with a broad area of rotation on the radar at the same time.
Yeah, we were seeing it. Yeah.
So I understand why they issued the warning. There just was no touchdown, no damage even. So.
And that's the tell.
Right.
Just, again, this first summer for me here, I'm seeing 40 miles an hour do damage. And if there were a tornado, we would have known about it.
And it was, somewhat populated. Norwich Walk to Skowhegan.
Yeah, we would have known.
Would have been just north of the center of Skowhegan.
We would have known.
We had Akuo made it to the Skowhegan Fire Department by 4:30, and they hadn't heard anything. So by 5 o'clock, I felt like it was pretty apparent to us that there wasn't much.
And then you start getting we got a couple of photos. I got to sneeze. Do I look at the lights to not sneeze? We were getting photos of just some absurdity. Not this.
Oh, not this. Not this.
We didn't share the photos.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
I know where you're going.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we dealt with either an AI picture or a picture from somewhere else or a combination.
We don't know.
Yeah, somebody sent Dana a picture of a tornado and said it was the tornado, but that was in like the 5 o'clock hour we got it.
Yeah, she was texting us. Like and
we were already skeptical because we hadn't heard about anything.
Yeah, and I gotta feel bad like for the weather service, right? Because they're issuing these warnings and they're probably getting bombarded with stuff like this all the time. And like we were running some of these through AI filters and it was like, no, this isn't AI, but we like it
just didn't make sense that 2 hours later there were maybe 200 customers that had been without power in Madison. You don't know if that's from a lightning strike, from a limb that came down, from something non-weather related, but that was all we could find in the area. But I think that you make a good point. Now that this AI stuff is everywhere, now in severe weather situations, we really have to be skeptical.
It's harder.
Yes.
It's almost harder because it's easier for the other side to just do it.
And it's one thing when you know the source, like, a lot of you who comment on our stuff, we're familiar with you.
Like Ricky. Yeah, I would trust Ricky.
We trust Ricky. Justine and Gray, Rick and the Gunkwit, Jan and Cherryfield. Like we know
them. Yeah.
So it's always helpful when it's somebody we've heard from before because we know that they're not trying to pull.
There's a rapport there.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a cool shot that came in.
Really
later.
awesome.
So good stuff there. But yeah, fortunately nothing touched down. I thought that we handled it as reasonably well as we could
with the info that we had. Yep. I mean, you can't just blow it off.
Right. No, of course not. Of course not.
You cannot blow it off.
In the 10 or 15 minutes following the issuance of the warning, it looked fairly serious. And then after that, it became apparent that, okay, good, maybe nothing happened.
And there was one more thing that I'm just going to say it in full transparency. The warnings that were coming out were for an observed and confirmed tornado, which the Weather Service did clarify that maybe that was a bit too aggressive. I think that's what they had said today. And again, it's not to like poo-poo anybody. It's just the world we're living in. And I think we operate on the abundance of caution rather than to just ignore something.
Yeah. So that's a good point. The text of the warning, like which people get now on their apps.
Yes. Yeah.
It said confirmed tornado moving toward Skowhegan, paraphrasing, but it used the word confirmed tornado.
And that's alarming.
It is.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we are in a Slack channel with them where they communicate with us. And 30 seconds after they put out the warning, we weren't even on TV yet, they said, hey, this was a funnel cloud reported that may have skipped and touched the ground. So it wasn't a full-on tornado in their eyes, even though the text of the warning came out with that.
Yes.
So we were at least able to give some context to that, as opposed to like if we didn't have that Slack channel and we just were reading the text of the warning.
It would have been worse.
Yeah, it would have been much more serious.
Yeah. At least as far as how we would have been communicating it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was an interesting one. Glad that nothing bad happened. There was some wind damage in Kennebunk from a thunderstorm that went through there at 1:30, and then thunderstorm ahead of this one that went through St. Albans, knocked down some trees. But there was nothing that we could find in Skowhegan, Madison, Norridgewock.
No. We've already gone to our limit.
We have, but that's good.
That was
the weather's
fast.
Quiet.
It's
I want to
amazing.
quickly mention on the topic of the Weather Service, though, we talk a lot on this show about the beam blockage issue at the Weather Service radar in Gray. Let me quickly show you. So
I'm excited about this.
These are the radars that we have in our region, Gray, Caribou in Maine. There's one down in Taunton, Mass., another one in Burlington, Vermont. The Burlington one does nothing for us.
It's blocked by mountains.
Right.
Okay,
Taunton does, and of course Caribou does. But Gray very quietly today put out a statement at about 10 o'clock this morning that the radar was going to be offline and it was offline from 10:30 to 1:30. And they said in the statement that there was a contractor on site today flying a drone to measure the heights of the trees. So there are a bunch, and if you've been with us for a while, you probably already know this. On the south and east side of the radar, there are a bunch of trees that have grown over the last 30 years, and they now block the lowest beam in this direction.
Which is critical.
Yeah,
for
when you
southern
go out-
Maine, it's critical.
Yeah, when you go out a distance from the radar, that beam then blocks essentially all of York, Cumberland counties and parts of the midcoast. So it really takes down the quality.
So they're
of the
thinking
image.
about what, taking some trees out?
Something's going on. We don't know more than that, but I just thought it was interesting.
That's interesting.
They did not put it in Slack, by the way. They just said it'd be offline.
Okay.
But in the public statement,
The PNS?
yeah, something.
Is that what it
else.
is? Something-
It was something different. Free
Yeah.
text message.
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
One of those.
Okay.
I think.
This is interesting.
So,
yeah. Good stuff.
We will be doing some follow-ups in the weeks ahead to see if there's any.
Well, we're not
progress.
going to need it the next 4 days.
Right.
Yeah.
So that part's great. I guess
Yeah.
I can show you the 7-day, but we're in for a great stretch through the weekend.
Excited.
And then we'll see about next week. Looks muggier.
Unsettled.
Yeah,
It's
unsettled's the word to
Yeah.
call it.
Yep.
If you're like me and you have some time off early next week, it could be better than
Monday's your
it
day.
looks. Yeah,
Monday's
Monday
your
looks
day.
pretty good.
Yeah.
And the weekend's great.
Yeah.
All right, hey, if you have any thoughts on any of this, be it our opinions on how things went, or if you watched some of the coverage, or if you experienced anything, weatherweenies@newscentermaine.com, we'd be glad to hear from you.
Yep.
Thanks for watching.